Apple isn't an innovative company anymore. And that's okay. People say that Apple doesn't innovate anymore. Enough so that Phil Schiller felt it necessary to take a shot at all the haters while introducing the latest Mac Pro at the end of 2013.
Can't innovate anymore, my ass.
While it was probably supposed to just be a lighthearted jab, it came off more as a company desperate to keep its public image as an innovation machine alive, even though all it did was make a machine more compact and lock the thing down. You know, the same thing they've been doing with all their computers since the late 90s. Now, a lot of people throw around the death of Steve Jobs as the death of innovation at Apple, and don't get me wrong, love him or hate him, the dude was a visionary and pioneered some of the boldest moves the tech industry has made as of late. If not from raw innovation, then bold, unyielding implementation of cutting-edge technologies in consumer products, and creating a god-tier level of lust in his company's target demographic to propel them to the top and force competition to step their game up. And while that momentum might be gone with the passing of Steve Jobs, I don't think it's entirely due to Jobs being dead. I think it's just as much as due to Jobs' mission being complete. Let me back up for a second. 1984. The first Macintosh reveal. A fucking legendary event where this young upstart has the balls to take on the biggest multi-million-dollar company in computers at the time, calling them out by name and offering something so completely different than the status quo so he could cater to a different kind of person that didn't even fucking want a computer at the time. And you know what? He did it. He started a revolution in shifting the electronics and PC market from a solely business industry to primarily a consumer market. Fast forward again to the mid-90s when Jobs swaggers back on stage after returning to the company he was fired from to retroactively bail their asses out of a nosedive. The company the man built was dying because of Windows. Windows 95 could do everything that normal people needed a computer to do, and it did it at a cost lower than Mac OS did. The problem was that none of the hardware was anything to write home about, including Apple's devices at the time. They were all these big, ugly beige boxes with wires spewing out every which way. So Jobs killed off almost every product that Apple sells and said that they were only going to have 4 products. A consumer desktop, a consumer portable, a pro desktop, and a pro portable. And best of all these rigs were going to have class. And the iMac was the first machine that did exactly that. A beautiful, colorful all-in-one that spit in the face of these beige boxes everybody else was making. There was only one cable to get the thing running, no complex setup, and it was the first machine to really start pushing USB and access to the internet. And we all know how those technologies played out. Apple did this again with the iPod, again with the iPhone, again with the MacBook Air, and again with the iPad. All these products pushing the boundaries of what consumer technology could be. But despite the big fanfare with the Apple Watch, it hasn't really happened again with that product. No one really cares. Why? Think about it. All of these big pushes weren't because Apple was trying to be revolutionary, it was more of a byproduct. It was because they were fighting what the concept of consumer technology at the time could be. The Macintosh was spitting in the face of an unapproachable black screen and blinking cursor that scared off the average person, giving us the mouse and a modern GUI with a familiar interface paradigm. The iMac was taking a stand against a sea of beige, making consumer tech as sexy as it was technically sophisticated, finally putting an end to treating the home user as a second-class citizen. The iPod was taking these bulky MP3 players and antiquated CD players and giving us something that was truly portable, as well as delivering a central hub to where music in digital form could be easily accessed without resorting to piracy, turning the entire music industry on its head and pulling it into the consumer tech revolution. The iPhone was a response to early smartphones like the Moto Q and the Treo that were pieces of garbage, barely more than a digital planner, straddled with poor interfaces and WAP browsers that were barely more than text viewers, with virtually no multimedia function, and by extension, barely any consumer application. What was once an afterthought in the mind of manufacturers, Apple turned them into the single most lusted after item in the Western world. The MacBook Air was about making notebooks truly portable, saving us from the barrage of bulky 15-inch boxes and giving us something we actually wanted to take out of the house or office with us. And the iPad was a response to netbooks, a short-sighted attempt at making computing devices more affordable and easier than ever to take with you, scaling up the slim and slender smartphone tech that had portability in its DNA rather than scaling down antiquated hardware and software that was initially built to sit on a desk. Apple has always been motivated by shaping the consumer electronics landscape into what it felt it should be. That's been its entire 30-year legacy. But now, in 2015, Apple is the most valuable brand in the world. They're the top dogs. Instead of being the upstart renegades they were in 1984, they're today's IBM, with a chokehold on the direction of modern consumer electronics. Everybody wants to be the next Apple. But because of that, Apple has no one left to fight. The battle is won. The modern electronics landscape is exactly what Jobs and Apple wants it to be. It's Apple's game. Everybody else is just vying for second best. Apple doesn't innovate anymore because it's reached the endgame of its own vision. After 30 years, it's finally won, in profit and mind share, if not in raw market share. It's defined consumer tech of the last decade. Nobody can deny that. And because of that, they have no reason to do anything now but just stay the course, continue to iterate and refine their vision to make it even better. Apple innovated for 3 decades because it wanted to democratize technology, make it simple enough that anyone could use it, and sexy enough that everyone would want it. And they did it, and dragged every other player along kicking and screaming, even if that wasn't what their business model was all about. As a perfect example, just take a look at Lenovo. With new devices like the ThinkPad Carbon and the Levi series of notebooks, once a business-clad matte box of a working man machine, even they had to add some Apple sexy sauce to stay competitive. All you have to do is look at the plethora of Ultrabooks, Android tablets, and Android smartphones to see the massive effect of Apple's reach. All of those are chasing what Apple started. There's nothing going on in the consumer tech industry today that hasn't been influenced in some way by Apple, and that wasn't an accident. Apple doesn't innovate anymore. This is true. But it's also rather irrelevant, because the truth of it is, at this point, they don't even have to.